Hello and welcome to the vlog. I'd stayed outside Burton-on-Trent marina for a night or two despite the noise of the busy road and was now ready to continue my voyage. The plan for today is simply to get through Burton-on-Trent. It's not many miles, but it is going to involve 4 locks, the first of which is just a little way along from here. And by a little way, I mean just past the marina entrance and around this gentle bend where a fair few narrowboats have moored. There's the lock, and there was another boater coming up, which meant they wouldn't have to shut the top gates behind them and I'd go straight in. At the side of the lock was the pleasant surprise of a little set of honesty boxes filled with fresh vegetables and some jams. I like this kind of thing. They'd even left some disposable gloves and alcohol gel, but no tin to put the money in. I helped myself to some produce, leaving the coins in the box. The other boat emerged while I was pondering my purchase, so I hopped quickly back aboard and took my boat down. This 30p bargain would later be chopped up and boiled as a side to my evening meal. Below the lock are not 1 but 2 water points. In fact, the whole eastern stretch of the Trent and Mersey Canal seems to be very well served for water and waste facilities, which is excellent. Look, these are lesser spotted SAS sheep who like to camouflage themselves in the long grass. Just 1 lock done, and already I'm sweating buckets. It's going to be a scorcher today. It's absolutely lovely. Lovely day for boating. Sit back and immerse yourself in a few moments from the trip, ignoring the A38's roar if you can. Finally, the canal bears away from the busy road here, and the hope of tranquility is restored. It's fair to say I am the world's worst estimator of distance, and wasn't sure if that other oncoming boat would get to the very slim bridge hole first, so I stopped. You can guess what happened, of course. He also stopped. So I nudged forward a bit to get a better peek at what was going to happen. Apparently he'd flashed his tunnel lamp at me a couple of times, but I couldn't see it, not least because of the sun which was shining directly at him. Ultimately, and to both our relief, he came forward and I reversed a little to ensure there was space. It is, by the way, a law of narrowboating that if you are going to meet an oncoming boat, it will be at a narrow point or blind bend. Once through, I could put the pedal to the metal. 4 miles an hour, no less. It was mid-September and the canals were still busy, especially as the weather was so nice. This must be one of, if not the most picturesque locks on the system. It's Tattenhill Lock, with the classic working boat outside, the old lock cottage, the lock bridge and the lock itself, all forming a rather lovely scene. The cottage is now a bed and breakfast, by the way, so you can stay here if you want a canal fix without actually being on a boat. I'm going to let this run a bit because it's pretty. Again, more boaters were coming up and kindly helped put me through with no sign of any ado.
Have a good day.
There's a water park just a few hundred yards further on, once a gravel quarry apparently, and now a big nature reserve and tourist attraction. There are 48-hour visitor moorings if you fancy stopping. Unfortunately, at present you'd have to put up with the noise of this housing estate being built. And that's a theme that's noticeable on the outskirts of Burton-on-Trent. It's expanding into the countryside like so many towns and villages, with yet another carbon copy estate taking over the landscape. Avert your gaze from the sides and you can pretend it's not there. Yes, another lock, but the reason I'm showing you this one is to demonstrate again how there's more engineering to the canals than you might think, with this overflow channel taking excess water down to the next pound, so as to ensure the canal never floods, well, in theory at least. Here's where it emerges, just below the lock. As you come to the edge of town, there's a mooring from which you can walk to Morrison's supermarket, so I took a space at the end and stocked up on provisions. On my way again, I had another boat behind me. This makes me twitchy as I worry about whether they want to overtake. I let them past a little while later. Burton is very proud of its local brewery, as this sign suggests. There are tours if beer's your thing. A little marina is tucked in there. The town has superb playing fields and a picnic area with moorings alongside. Most of the canal-side gardens in Burton seem well tended, although, as usual, nobody to be seen enjoying them. If you want to buy one, there's a few houses here for sale too. I went through another lock and there were 3 boats queuing on the other side to come up. That's a traffic jam in narrowboating. Then, in the middle of town, just up ahead, is a facilities point, which I needed to stop at briefly. Turning onto it from this direction is simple, especially when the little basin next door is almost empty, as it was here. Just minutes later, setting off again was the same process, but in reverse, quite literally. Did I mention how busy the canal was? Here's a sample of some of the boats coming the other way that afternoon. With yet another playing field on the far side of town, Burton is clearly for sporty folk. Once you're under this bridge, you're back in the countryside. I'm now just looking for somewhere to moor up. Along here, you have still got the A38 right alongside, which is noisy. And I don't want to go all the way to Willington. I've got a friend coming to visit me for a couple of days in Willington in a couple of days' time, so I don't want to get there just yet. But the bank here is not suitable for mooring, so I'm just edging along, hoping to find somewhere. And find somewhere I did, which was okay for a day or so, albeit very noisy.
Morning.
When I set off to cover the final mile or two to Willington, there were no fewer than 6 little aqueducts to go over, crossing the River Dove and lots of other streams and waterways. I think we should all put our hands together in applause for the fine fellow who owns this boat at the end. The name explains everything. Here's the start of Willington, the village I was aiming for. I pulled up at the services point and refilled the water tank. Then there was a perfect space for my boat on the opposite side visitor moorings. So with a quick burst of the engine, I secured my slot for the next 48 hours. Cheerio.